If that hasn't gotten people to wake up yet, what will? Wake up and realize these people don't care about you. The Libertarian Party is the only party that actually cares about your rights to liberty and freedom. What's up, North Carolina, and welcome back to the Liberty Inc. podcast, your source for all things liberty in NC. You'll see that we've got something a little different here. Rather than doing this remotely, I have got Sean Haugh, the Libertarian candidate for North Carolina, House 31, who came all the way from Durham to hang out with me and put together this podcast. I think a little bit of us, we're going to be going to get some Puerto Rican food after this. I'm Puerto Rican and at convention last year. Sean and I went and had some Costa Rican Dominican food.
It was Dominican.
Yeah, it was a Dominican spot, and I had mofongo, and I'm a big believer that Puerto Rican mofongo is better than Dominican mofongo. Again, I'm biased. I'm Puerto Rican. I get it.
So I'm about ready to find out.
But Sean is going to be our independent judge of which is better.
Okay.
And I thought,
happy to serve.
We wanted to come up with what I think some would call a controversial podcast. Is that what we're going for today, John?
If people find what I have to say controversial, fine.
Sure. I'm sure there's some who would call our friendship controversial, but I think that's silly because I think there's no reason that we shouldn't be great friends, and I consider you friends.
If anybody has any cognitive dissonance over it, I find it delicious.
Yeah,
personally.
Yeah.
Because I'm proud to be seen in public with people I work with, my friends and allies. So, and I really don't care what anybody else thinks about that.
Yeah. And I know too. So let's we're going to talk about a lot, Sean.
Sure.
But one of the big things that I thought would be a good topic for this conversation is this idea of liberty unity, which depending on where you are in the country. May seem crazy to some people, but here in North Carolina, I think it's just the way it is. I mean,
it's really simple. I've been organizing here in North Carolina since 1994. I've been a libertarian all my life. I found out about the Libertarian Party in 1979.
Wow.
And my first job was, I had a summer job being a petitioner for the Clark Coke campaign in 1980. That was fun, but I really didn't get involved seriously in the party until 94 here in North Carolina. And to me, it's just like, do you forswear the initiation of force to achieve social or political goals? And if you're for that, then you're in. You should be welcome in the Libertarian Party, no matter where you came from.
Yeah.
I find it really amusing. I was raised liberal, and I came to this from the left, and I actually
did too. People find that weird that I'm a Mises Caucus organizer. I grew up in Broward County, Florida. If you've ever looked at presidential politics, you should know Broward County, Florida. We're usually the last place in Florida to get our votes in.
Well, I'm the son of an Episcopal priest, so the household icons, and I'm from Arizona originally, so the household icons when I was growing up were Barry Goldwater and Martin Luther King, and my dad never understood why this produced a natural-born libertarian. But, we're exempt from the whole left-right stuff. We're libertarian. We're for freedom as opposed to authority rather than being on the left-right political spectrum. So,
well, we should be. It seems that there's a lot of people on kind of all of the different factions that want to make it more complicated than that, and I really don't think it is. Like, libertarianism is not inherently left or right.
Right.
And as long as we're fighting.
Anybody who wants more freedom and less authority should be welcome in the Libertarian Party.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Well, one thing that, in certain states and certain things there, they want to make it seem like there's some kind of inherent or natural conflict between kind of the long-term party members and some of the newer members who, a lot of the new members are coming in through the Mises Caucus, myself included.
Yeah.
And I disagree. Like, I fundamentally disagree that there's any natural conflict between the two, and that really we should all be trying to grow the dang party because we're this big. We need to be this big, right?
It's like I said, it's just really simple. If you agree, I really don't care what your values are, as long as two of them are, I'm not going to hit people and I'm not going to take their stuff. Well, then we can disagree about almost anything else. If we're agreed on those essential points, then you're my friend and ally, and I want to work with you.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny. I was with Spike just the other day, and kind of Spike brought up this whole idea around like single issue coalitions, where I think that can work even within LP, right?
Oh yeah.
The issues that are most important to me might not be the most important to you. I think the biggest one, judging by that little badge,
oh yeah,
we're very much anti-war. I think
I am a single issue voter, and that's why I'm a libertarian. I am a single issue voter. I want to stop all war, and I'm only going to vote for a candidate that wants to end war, whether it's literal or metaphorical. And I'm not going to vote for a candidate who's going to continue, especially this perpetual war that we've had going on for over 20 years now.
Yeah. I mean, I look at it and I say, you know, if you agree on certain issues, let's work together there. And this thing in Gastonia that's been kind of a passion project of mine for a while.
Oh, it's a beautiful thing, man.
But what's funny is at the first rally, the vice chair of the North Carolina Republican Party Liberty Caucus showed up because he's a veteran, right? He's a veteran.
Okay.
So I said, okay, now we've got kind of this bipartisan thing. And then the last time while we were in speaking, the few of us that got in, when I came out, it turns out that someone from the local Democrat Party was just walking on the street, saw this and asked about it. So when we come back next month, it's going to be tripartisan. It's going to be Libertarians, Republican Party, and Democrat Party all there.
It's all about, are you for freedom? Are you for compassion?
Yeah.
Yeah. And one reason why I really love this action that you're doing here is that it's really meaningful. You know, you're standing up for an actual person, and you're also standing up for a fellow who is trying to provide services to people, actually trying to take care of and minister to the homeless, and government's trying to prevent him from doing that. And that, this is rubber meets the road kind of stuff. We can sit around on Twitter all day and talk about foreign policy and whatever else, but my question is, or rather my attitude is, your politics really don't mean much unless they actually help people.
Sure.
And if you're out there actually trying to help people, even if it's just one person at the local level, that's our work. That's more meaningful than anything that we say on social media. Anything like that.
Well, it hits on something. So, we talked about this when you first came over here. We've been hanging out for a little bit before the podcast, but, we said, are we going to focus on your campaign, right? And the reality
we
is,
can.
We can. And Sean, what I love about Sean is that he's only got one opponent, right? He's just running against the Democrat. Apparently, the Republicans don't even care enough to put their hat in the race. Thankfully, Sean is at least here to make sure that they have to spend a little bit of money on that race. But you've ran against just a Democrat multiple times, right?
This is my 9th time that I've run for office. This is the 4th time that I have only had one opponent who is a Democrat. So I live in Durham. Libertarians have historically, ever since I've been involved, have run more candidates than the Republicans do. Generally, I'm in a district where I can't count on the Republicans to field anybody. Not that I want them to, but I really believe I'm really into the whole civic religion kind of stuff and sort of the founding principles of this country, both as a republic and as a democracy. And to me, if there's only one government-approved candidate on the ballot, that's not democracy. That's a one-party state. I stole this from Tom Bailey, although I had a very similar experience when I was a kid growing up in the 60s. It's the Vietnam War. And they taught us in school that, you can tell that a communist country doesn't really have free elections or democracy because there's only one government-approved candidate on the ballot in these countries like Soviet Union, Vietnam, wherever. And then I walk into my voting booth and I see one government-approved candidate on the ballot for all these races. And no, I can't. So it's worth $140 to me.
Yeah.
Every 2 years, just to make sure that the voters in my state house district have a choice and don't just have to vote for or not vote for the incumbent. I always tell the incumbent whenever I'm running against him, you deserve to know how many people in your district will vote for anybody but you. This is important information you need to have.
Sure, yeah. Well, and it's funny where you talk about kind of, where in the United States, we kind of unfortunately have this two-party system, right? Where we're trying to challenge that.
Right.
I kind of, look, I've said it. Sometimes it's controversial to some people. I think it's no surprise. I'm an anarchist. Like philosophically, again, I'm pragmatic in the sense where, it's not necessarily a straight shot to it. But I do believe in a fundamental level that I think anarchy is a better system than what we have. But outside of that, when I think of just the communist one-party rule that we saw in the Soviet Union and other places, there's really only one way out of that. I hate to say it, and as a libertarian, we don't really support that. But when you're under one party's tyrannical rule, there's really only one way out.
I've always said that, and people think it's a joke, and it's not, that I am involved in the Libertarian Party because I'm against blood in the streets. That their change is going to happen, one way or another. It's either going to be violent or it's going to be peaceful. Yeah. And that's why I'm in the Libertarian Party, because I want it to be peaceful. I want it to be voluntary. And I'm probably, I would be an anarchist if I thought it was viable. Right. The problem is people want a leader. And if there's nobody in power at a time, somebody's going to make up power and seize it.
Well, my argument is, does it have to be the state that fills that role, or could it be
exactly right? I mean, all
society? Like, because I'm the president. You've seen my neighborhood now. Yeah. I'm the president of our HOA. We have 170. Yeah, no, we have 170 units, and I'm the president of the HOA. I was the treasurer, and they actually unanimously appointed me as president just this year.
Yeah.
And I think my neighbors know I'm a libertarian, and I run it libertarian. I'm not going to bug you about what bushes you put on your front yard,
No, when we bought a house, no HOA it's like two things: no HOA, and not on. We have dogs, so not on a major street. That was it. But and there's this woman in our neighborhood that I refer to as the self-appointed queen of the non-existent HOA. I get on Nextdoor. The only reason why I get on Nextdoor at all is to find out what she's snitching about these days.
Every neighborhood has that. We have one in our neighborhood who on trash day, if you didn't take your trash can back behind your house the day after trash, she'll go around the whole neighborhood, pick people's trash cans up, and leave it on their front door. I'm not even kidding. She takes time out of it, and you know what? Hey. She's technically trying to enforce the rules, but I find it a little obnoxious. But I'll tell you what, it makes sure that I take my trash can around. I'll tell you that I do take my trash can around, and as president, I guess I probably should be setting the example. But that whole thing, when I look at the system, because we were talking about this too, where where you really only have red fascism or blue fascism in the United States.
Well,
right?
I refer to Biden as blue Trump.
Blue Trump, that's what you were saying earlier.
The only difference between Biden and Trump that I can tell in terms of policy is that Biden does not go on unhinged Twitter rants. That's about it. But in terms of war, in terms of corporatism, in terms of government lying to us for their own gain.
Well, even the border, right?
Immigration policy, all the stuff that Biden said he was running on. He just lied about all of it. Like student loan debt, legalization of cannabis, a lot of things. Police brutality, a lot of things he campaigned on that were immediately forgotten the moment he was sworn into office. And things are just, for day-to-day existence, for what taxpayers are funding, nothing's changed.
Well, the reason I bring that up is, it's pretty clear that in a one-party state, there's only one way out. right? Where we look at the United States and we have this two-party state. So we have this illusion of, and as libertarians, we don't believe in the violent overthrowing of government, right? That's not the way to do it. But we're given this paradigm of, well, if we just bring in this other side, things will change. When the reality is we kind of sure seem to have a one-party state. It's just a different flavor.
I've put all my Democrat friends on notice that you will not ever again say to me how important it is that I vote for your guy instead of the red guy. And same with the red team. You cannot tell me. I mean, just get out. It is obviously a blatant lie. That this election in particular. Oh, it's so important that we get Trump out of there. And I agree. It's really important to get Trump out of there. But to replace him with what? Really, you didn't change a damn thing.
That's why I question. Was it really important?
It wasn't. What was important is libertarians getting involved.
That's the important thing. Is how do we
having another message out there? This is. My big claim to fame was when I ran for U.S. Senate in 2014, and I got a lot of attention. And one of the reasons why I did it was because I knew if I wasn't in the race, there would be no candidate talking about perpetual war. There would be no candidate talking about corporate welfare. There would be no candidate talking about ending the war on drugs.
Yeah.
And me being in that race made them talk about it. So I was able to draw quite a lot of the debate my way and have it on my terms. And I got 4.5% of the vote, which is enough power to have that kind of effect on the debate. And there are a lot of Democrats who are upset because I vastly exceeded the margin of difference between Tillis and Hagan, and I kept Tom Tillis, the winner, under 50%. But anybody who thinks that I actually swung the election one way or the other failed Algebra 1. Because to assume that, first off, you have to assume that a significant quantity of votes, people who voted for me, would have voted for Kay Hagan.
Right.
Otherwise. And since you failed Algebra 1, folks, I did the math for you. It's 77%. What on earth makes you think 77% of the people who voted for me would have voted for her if I wasn't on the ballot?
Right.
No. Maybe a third of them would.
Well, what I think a lot of people don't realize too is that
3/4.
There's a lot of people who vote Libertarian who wouldn't vote for either of the other two. If there wasn't a Libertarian there, they just wouldn't have voted for anybody.
No, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
And in the few times, and there was one exit poll done in my race, and in the times where we've had that kind of impact as a Libertarian candidate, and there's been post-election polling, and the question is posed, if your candidate hadn't been on the ballot, who would you have voted for? Probably the best data along this comes from a Wisconsin race from years ago, where the Greens were also on the ballot.
Okay.
And the Libertarian voters said, basically split perfectly evenly 4 directions. A quarter of them said they would have voted for the Republican, a quarter of them said they would have voted for the Democrat, a quarter of them said they would have voted for the Green, and a quarter of them said, I wouldn't have shown up at all.
Yeah.
I think the majority of people who voted for me in those Senate races are people who wouldn't have voted for either of the candidates otherwise.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of where I am now. Like I in the past, there have been points in my life where I was probably a pretty reliable blue voter. Points in my life where I was a reliably red voter. Points in my life where I was a reliable troll the system with write-in votes. I know I've attempted to elect Harambe to multiple offices.
And that'd be good.
Unfortunately, I was waiting because I looked at the polls afterwards, and I was hoping that I would actually get to see Harambe, see my write-in, and it didn't happen. It was just kind of like other write-ins. But
yeah,
that's the thing where people kind of look at it, and I'm good with that narrative though, because that narrative that they think that makes the uniparty kind of afraid of, oh no, this libertarian is gonna, that kind of gives us a little bit of, they have to pay attention to us.
When we get that kind of traction in a tight race, is like I said, the mere presence of a libertarian candidate forces the debate to go in a libertarian direction. You've got to deal with what I have to say. And it was really beautiful. They started, there was the whole get high ads. Those are hilarious. It turns out that was Rick Santorum money.
Okay.
There was a group called America's Future Foundation or something like that, that spent, strangely enough, $420,000 to produce these YouTube ads, which, by the way, was about 25 times my campaign budget. My campaign budget. I did all of this on $13,000 too, and YouTube videos, which are all still up on YouTube if you want to watch them. It was the Get High ads were hilarious.
Does he realize he bought you votes?
Every single thing that they did to try to hurt me or manipulate me only helped me. Every single thing. Those we're talking about. You need to vote for Sean Haugh instead of Kay Hagan because he's actually supporting young people's liberal values, like legalization of marijuana. They cited, my stances on war and on the environment, and I'm looking at that. Well, they did represent my ideas accurately.
Yeah.
So I don't really have a problem with this. And then
thanks for the in-kind donation, guys.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, thanks for helping make me famous. Grover Norquist ended up being I'm actually very honored that they pulled out somebody of such significance as Grover Norquist to try to attack me on Twitter as not being a real libertarian over some completely bogus made up garbage. And that was like the best Twitter beef I ever had. And I was enjoying every minute of it. And I finally got him to shut up by saying, you do realize that everything you're saying only helps me. You're only making me more famous, and you're only, telling people what I think. Or giving me the opportunity to tell people what I think through this debate. Because one thing you got to understand when you're debating people, especially on Twitter, you're not really debating a person. You're putting on a show for everybody else who's watching.
Yeah.
Especially when you're running for office. So I'm not trying to convince Grover Norquist of a damn thing. Or prove what he's saying is right or wrong. I'm just using this as an opportunity to he's giving me a platform to reach people who follow Grover Norquist. So it's like, oh, sure, you want to put that out in front of all your people? Go right ahead.
Well, it's funny because you hit something that I'm very much a believer of, where some people say don't argue online because you're not going to change any minds, and I actually. I disagree with the word any there. You're probably not going to change the mind of whoever you're arguing with, because if they care enough to argue with them, they're so dug into their opinion. Rare. But if people read it, right? That's where you can win. It's exactly not the people engaged in the argument, but
you have an audience and you're playing to them.
Yeah, and I try to view it. I'm not running for office, but I keep that lens.
Why are you running for office?
Huh?
You should run for office.
My personality does not lend myself to politics, in my opinion, especially with my dealings with this city council and stuff. I just won't. There's too much having to be bullshit nice, where you just have to.
Oh, but you can be nice without sacrificing anything.
Yeah.
In fact, this is something I work on.
Okay.
My mother was so good at this, of being incredibly blunt with you.
Okay.
Just telling you straight up exactly what she thinks of
I
situation.
I have that problem.
In the nicest possible way. But she did it in the nicest possible way where you would listen to that and you couldn't argue with her. You couldn't be mad at her because she wasn't being mean. She wasn't being condescending or dismissive or any of that. And fortunately, I've gotten some of that from her, and I deliberately try to emulate that.
Yeah.
Where you can be, and this is, I think, one of the reasons why I got so much traction, is that I will tell you exactly what is on my mind in no uncertain terms. But, you know, I'm not ugly with people about it. You know, I'm just...
Well, you're better than me. I'm not ugly first. I try not to be ugly, but you know, I'm human, and if someone's going to get ugly with me, and if they want to take it nasty, I can be a dick.
I've had some moments in my life and during my campaigns, which I would say are not my best moments, where I've succumbed to that too.
Yeah,
it's hard not to take it personally, and you know, but that's part of it. Is that this is politics? People are reacting to a label that they've put on me. You know, they're not really reacting to me.
Sure.
So, and I also am very secure in who I am.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable in my own skin. So it's nothing you can say that's going to bring me off of that.
Right.
So, you know, but still, there's so much prevarication, so much hypocrisy in politics. It's hard to keep your cool about it all the time. That's for sure. But I'm trying to, I try very hard to be able to call it out and be honest about it and be uncompromising about it without, because part of the problem is when you get really head up about it and angry about it and start insulting people, you distract from your message. And you see this a lot in Twitter arguments. There are arguments that are going on right now that it's like I just stay out of, because it's like people who already have this set view of who have been arguing with each other for years or arguing with each other over the new thing now.
Right.
And it's really kind of hard to get an unbiased take on any of these things. And of course, the people like me who are willing to give you an unbiased take are keeping their mouths shut for the most part.
Well, my approach to this has always been, and I try to keep it that way, is I try to never attack the person, even when I want to. Even when I think it's justified, I try to say, you know what, I feel like attacking the person, even if you maybe have like the best legitimate reasons to do that, you're better served by attacking the idea. And a lot of times, the reason that you're attacking the person might be because of that idea, but by making the attack personal instead of just isolating and saying that this is the... And that's something that I try to hold myself to, is try to stick to the ideas. And I'm a human. I'm not perfect. Sometimes I slip and I'll attack the person, and I usually catch myself and try to fix it.
I got this one from Rush Limbaugh, of all people.
Okay. Someone you're a big fan of course, I'm sure.
No, I was not. But, but here's the thing. When you're right, you're right. Okay? Doesn't matter who you are. When you're right, you're right. Yeah. And also, the converse is true. When you're wrong, you're wrong. It doesn't matter if you're my friend or my enemy or whatever. But Rush Limbaugh I caught this on C-SPAN a long time ago. He gave a speech at Stanford talking about the conservative mind, basically. And but he talked about the differences in... The thing that really struck me was he said that he wanted to change political debate from good versus evil to right versus wrong. Because, if you think somebody is wrong, well, you could reason with them and you can have a conversation with them, maybe convince them to get right. And, when you're in that conversation with them, maybe you'll realize you were wrong. Yeah. And you want to get right. So it can be a productive conversation. But good and evil, oh no. Evil needs to be shot on sight. Shoot first and ask questions later. And never question.
If you call somebody evil, how do they come out too? Like
but that's the thing. Yeah, if you call me evil, why am I going to pay any attention to your point of view at all?
Yeah.
And you see this a lot in politics of all stripes, of people just get really attached to an idea or a person, and then they just defend that to the death, to the point where they will say any nonsense at all, because they don't want to admit that they were wrong. They don't want to admit that the person that they're caping for has flaws or legitimate areas of criticism. You really have to sort of step back and look at the ideas themselves. Acknowledge when somebody's right, even if they're your opponent, and acknowledge when somebody's wrong, even if they're your closest ally.
Yeah.
You have to be committed to your principles and to the truth as you understand it before any of that.
Well, that's a big problem that I see with a lot of the factionalism in the LP right now. And as a we've got someone, you've been with the LP for a very, very long time. Yeah. I have not, right? I've been a small L libertarian, I think, most of my life, but I didn't really know what it was, and only actively got involved in the party in the past couple of years. But when I look and I see this fighting, I see the same stuff that's going on between Republicans and Democrats here in the party. And the idea of libertarianism is it's not left or right. And I think that there's a home in the LP for people who are left or right from the traditional sense, as long as they are not authoritarian, right? And this battle bothers me because I see kind of these factions, and that's why one of my goals with this podcast was, how do we export the way all the different factions in North Carolina work together? How do we make other states do that? Because I think we're pretty effective in North Carolina. Well, we don't all agree on everything, but we sure as heck don't get into the BS that some of these other states are doing, where they're trying to kick each other out. Because,
like I said, we agree on the important thing.
Yeah.
The one important thing, which is that public policy should forswear the initiation of force to try to achieve its goals. And if you're for that, then, we can work together, no matter where you come from at all. And to me, a reason why we've had success in North Carolina, other states have had factionalism, is because nobody showed up for a fight. When people show up for a fight and then the other side decides, well, okay, I'll engage you in the fight, well, then there are going to be winners and losers, and there's going to be a bloodbath, and there's going to be a lot of things done that do not advance the party in any way from all sides. So we're really lucky here in North Carolina. Nobody showed up for a fight. Our ex-chair, Brent DeRitter, I thought, put it perfectly. When Mises Caucus was first really getting going, and he said to some folks, okay, well, you talk about takeover. Well, what do you want to take over? Because we have a lot of open volunteer positions. And that just completely changes the conversation. If people show up, no matter where they come from, and you welcome them and you nurture them, and even if they're like I say, baby libertarians, if you help them along and help them grow as a libertarian, help them understand the philosophy and what we're all about better, like I said, in a nurturing way, you're going to have a lot of really positive results. And if you're concerned about anti-libertarian views infiltrating the party, well, that's also the way to inoculate yourself from those. We don't have anybody here who's an embarrassment, who's putting out what I would call anti-libertarian views. We have different points of emphasis. We talk about different things, and sometimes there's some disagreement. But I run the LPNC Twitter account, and Ryan, who runs the Mises Caucus account here, and we get along great, and we work together really well. We consult with each other. I mean, he's doing his own thing. LPNC has no authority whatsoever over what he does with the Mises Caucus account.
Sure.
Whereas I have to answer to the entire party, but that's okay. Ryan
has to answer to us as the North Carolina Mises Caucus. I mean, there's
okay.
Yeah.
But so we've been able to. I now, as policy with the LPNC Twitter account, I really try to stay away from any controversies at the national level or within or in other states, and just concentrate on what we're doing here in North Carolina.
Well, that's a big reason for, I think, why we're able to be successful, right? It's easy to buy into that, and if we did, I just have to think, would that help the LP in North Carolina or hurt it? And I think it would unequivocally hurt it.
What exactly?
Well, if we were to engage in some of the national things, right, where we see, if I just think if we were to let that infect the way we operate.
Right.
That's a net negative for liberty in North Carolina.
And this has been the attitude this has been a deliberate attitude of the LPNC for a long time, long before the Mises Caucus hit the scene, which is, number one, we're going to love all our libertarians, no matter where they came from. And number two is we're going to do our own thing. We're going to concentrate on North Carolina. We're going to concentrate at the local level, and the LNC, we needed them for ballot access money back in the day, for sure. But now that we can get on the ballot and stay on the ballot on our own, it's like they can do what they want, and it's kind of a sideshow. It's always been a sideshow. I've served on the LNC, and I think that it's I'm going to Reno because I want to have a voice on who serves on the next LNC.
As am I.
But it's. I'm sorry, I sort of lost my train of thought.
I'm kind of in the same boat where I look at it from a standpoint of I very much want to see, I want to see North Carolina move closer to liberty, and some people may call it selfish, right? Because, you only care about your state. Well, no, I just care most about my state because it impacts my life on a daily basis, and if I'm splitting my efforts everywhere, I'm like, I'd rather focus here and let other local activists focus on their states.
I care about what I can control.
Yeah.
And if there are things that are outside of my control, I'm not going to get too worked up about it. The LNC is going to do whatever the LNC is going to do. People are going to argue with each other on Twitter, no matter what. People are going to go off and do their own thing. The only thing I have control over is me doing my own thing,
right,
and using that to influence the people around me. That's really it. I'm really fortunate. I've been able to have a lot of influence over the LPNC, but I'm just sort of a part of it. I'm not the only person by any means. This has been a concerted effort by everybody in the party for a long time, that we want to be welcoming to anybody, and we want to set aside, screen out all the noise from outside of North Carolina and just concentrate on working together and accomplishing things here. And we've had a tremendous level of success with that attitude.
Well, I have to say something that I think is kind of relevant, and I have to just kind of look at my experience, right? Where I came in through the Mises Caucus to get involved in the party, and I think by the time this episode airs, I'll officially be the treasurer of LPNC.
Right.
Take it over for Barbara.
Right.
We're working on that.
Thank you for doing that.
But I have to look at some of these other places where they don't have kind of the unity that's really focused around the work, right? I think that's what drives the unity here is there's work to be done.
Right.
Let's get the work done. And I don't care about anything else. Let's get the work done.
And that's sort of a disconnect I have about the Mises Caucus, that we've talked about, which is I can have criticisms of individuals who wear that label, the national leadership, or prominent personalities, but what's going on here in North Carolina. Yeah. With the folks from the Mises Caucus. Y'all are solid libertarians. You play nice with others.
Most of the time.
A joy to work with. No, you all are really a joy to work with.
Well, thank you.
Totally. And, you show up, you do the work, everything that y'all have earned, every title that you've gotten, everything that you won here is something earned because you showed up and did the work.
Yeah.
And, how can anybody look at that and have any kind of problem with that? Well, I'm not a Mises Cox person, but, I'm happy to see the party continue to grow and to have all kinds of new people come in and take up the work that I used to do.
What I think is big too is like I have to look at like my own story of how I got involved, and I'm just thankful that North Carolina is the way it is. Because if I were to imagine myself in either faction, right, in some of these states that are so hostile with the factionalism, like if I came in as a new activist and said, "Hey, I want to be a part of this," I would have turned around and said, "What am I? No, I'm good. I want no part of this." If I walked in and saw that,
we need to nurture the people who walk in the door.
What I'd like to know, you've been in the party for a really long time, and I look at myself, and some people, I'm thankful that people call me young. I'm turning 40 this year, so I'm not that young.
You're young. You're young.
I still have, hopefully many years of activism left.
Yeah.
Where do we want to see LPNC go? I mean, I look at it and say we're still really small. We need a lot more activists. We need a lot more anything. But what does that path look like? What should we be really focusing on in the next, say, decade or two?
I just think, just keep doing what we're doing.
Okay.
Because it's working. I remember when we got up to 6,600 registered voters in North Carolina, and I thought, wow, that's huge. That's really great. And now we're at 50,000.
Right.
And growing, just continuing to grow. And as we get bigger, that growth accelerates, and we get more and more people out there. The Libertarian Party is a little over 50 years old now, and to me, the mere fact that we've survived this long, you look at American history, not too many parties make it to their 50th birthday. Just the mere fact that we are still here and still growing and gaining more traction and putting more libertarian ideas out there. And then you look at, what has happened over the last 50 years? The things that we have always stood for have gone from being, you radical libertarians, dream on, to law of the land.
Yep.
Like legal marijuana, like same-sex marriage.
Not yet in North Carolina.
Well, I know, but still.
But yeah.
But, it's like things that were dismissed as radical pie in the sky.
Sure.
That was coming from us. Well, now we're still saying the same things that we always said, but they have traction. We are able. To me, this is the power of libertarian campaigns. Our best success story, in my view, comes from 1992.
Okay.
A fellow named Scott McLaughlin ran for governor for us on a single issue: repeal the sales tax on food and clothing. The state sales tax, which was 5%. And people dismissed him as, you libertarian, dream on. Fast forward just to 1997, Democrats and Republicans are scrambling in the General Assembly to take credit for repealing the sales tax on food and clothing, something we have to this day. Scott McLaughlin was the guy who put that on the table. It wasn't being talked about until he ran for governor as a libertarian. And he got 4%. 5 years later, his issue became law.
Wow.
And we've been saving that money ever since. We're back.
So we took a little break there, but one thing I kind of wanted to touch on, which I guess maybe a little bit controversial, because it's an idea that seems to be at the core of some of the factionalism, right? And it's the idea of what should we be doing, right? Where there seems to be a faction that is very much of we're a political party. All we need to be doing is running candidates, and that's the primary and only thing. And then there's the other side that says, we need to be really focused on messaging or something else. I'm very much in the...
They're not in conflict.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not... I think we should be doing all of the above. But how would...
One.
Yeah.
Okay, number one. We are a political party.
Yeah.
We're the Libertarian Party. We run candidates for office like my old friend Shelby Mood. And that's what we do. We engage in the electoral arena. And if you don't want to do that, there are plenty of other great organizations or individual action that you can take. That doesn't. You don't have to be in the Libertarian Party to do libertarian work. It's really important to me that it's fun, And if you're not having fun in the Libertarian Party, maybe you should go find another way to express your libertarian activism, and that's fine. Godspeed to you, man. But I think one of the reasons why the Mises Caucus has gotten a lot of traction is because at the national level, at least, our messaging has been weak. And there, there's again, I was telling you about the relationship that I have with Ryan when he's running the Mises Caucus North Carolina account. And as long as you're putting out actual libertarian ideas, we do need to be a whole lot bolder. And I think that there is a sort of tension between wanting to be true to our principles and wanting to be part of the establishment. Like the funniest thing that was ever said about us, in my view, and I can't remember her name, and I've been trying to scrape my mind for this for years, and I can't remember her name. This was somebody who's writing the Under the Dome column for the News and Observer back in 1997 when we were having our ballot access woes. And she meant this as a put down, but I thought it was hilarious. Pity the poor libertarians who want to abolish government and yet so desperately want to be a part of it. And that's the essential conundrum with being in the Libertarian Party, is that we are trying to get in and legislate and change public policy from the inside. And so there's you really have to find that balance between how am I going to get into the establishment and operate once I'm inside the establishment versus maintaining your principles.
Sure.
So I think, a lot of people get into trouble sometimes because they're willing to water down the principles or not talk about certain things because they want to get elected, like any politician does, But we continue to grow, being an ideological party, on our principles. And as I was saying earlier, you stick to your principles, people come around to it. You said, and the Fed 10 years ago, 12, 15 at this point. I just remember I was a big Ron Paul supporter.
Yeah. I mean, Ron's been saying it since the 70s.
I know. But here's the thing. It's like, okay, so I actually registered as a Republican briefly for 90 days, a little over 90 days, in Durham, simply so I would be eligible to go to the county convention and vote for candidates to the state convention who are committed to Ron Paul. And Pam and I both, my wife, Pam, Miss Sweetie, and I both did this, and it was an interesting experience. But, I was happy to do it. And then, so I'm watching returns come in New Hampshire in 2012, and there are all these young kids at the Ron Paul after party chanting, "And the Fed." And I thought, really, this is fantastic, because I thought this is like the most unsexy issue you could possibly pick. Nobody's going to care about this at all. And then to see all these young people, latching on to, gravitating this message. This is why they support Ron Paul. This is the thing they like the most about him. It's like, okay. And now, you can talk about and the Fed and be taken seriously.
Yeah.
You know, it's not some, wacky radical idea. Well, it's still radical, but that's the thing. We're moving our radical ideas into the mainstream. And there are other things that Ron Paul talked about. There were times when he was alone in talking about these things. It's him and the Libertarians who are talking about this stuff. And now a lot of this stuff is legitimate public policy debate. It's not fringe nonsense anymore to people.
Well,
it's great.
When I think of that whole thing, and I agree, without candidates, we need candidates, but I just look at it, fielding quality candidates, right? Like I feel like there's some who are just like run candidates, right? But if you're running a candidate that, that either doesn't represent libertarianism well or doesn't want to do it, I just look at it and I see, like the efforts that we're doing, like locally, that I just saw, I wish, and again, I think back to like when I first started the podcast, like I had the Pitt County chair on, and he was saying how Jonathan Riggs, and he said this one issue, and it kind of inspired me where I'm like, I feel like that's something that even if people don't want to be candidates, but find something local in every town across North Carolina and every town across America. Find something local that your government is doing wrong. It's not hard. All you really have to do is look.
It's not hard. And you show up to city council meetings, you start talking about this. It's like you were talking about that. People are going to look at that. That's leadership, because people are going to look at that and they're going to say, oh, that guy's talking about something I care about.
Yeah.
This guy's bringing up something that I've noticed. This guy's talking some sense. And this is sort of like my basic...
it's way cheaper than a campaign, too, by the way.
I don't know. You can run a campaign on no money, especially now with social media.
Yeah.
Like I said, I spent $13,000 on my 2014 Senate campaign and mostly ran it off of YouTube.
Yeah.
So, but what you're doing, you're helping the brand, because even though you're not running for office, you're in local activism, and the same thing with Jonathan Riggs and what they're all doing in Pitt County. When you attach the brand to it, you're helping the party, because now when a Libertarian candidate comes up and they say, "Oh, I've heard of you before. You're the guys who are standing up to the Gastonia City Council."
Yeah.
And one of the things I always preach too, and we're still kind of at this point, is that there are so few of us that people's views of the Libertarian Party and of libertarians invariably are based on how they personally feel about the first person that they knew was a libertarian.
Yeah.
And if they think that person is a great guy, really, really open, really, is doing good work in the community, you help me and my family out, something like that, they're going to they may think, well, I don't really agree with libertarians, but they're good people, and I'm willing to listen to them. And if somebody's first exposure to a libertarian was, some edgelord on Twitter telling them why they're evil, then they're going to think we're all jerks.
Yeah, that's spot on. And what's funny is, I think it was Spike Cohen, and I hate to go back on it, but I was just hanging out with him the other day, so it's relevant. When Spike said, that there's a lot of people who don't care about politics.
Right.
But pretty much everybody cares about the impact of politics.
Yes.
And I saw it with just the local activism here. I mean, I've had somebody from both halves of the Uniparty, at least one person that I'll tell you, and I'm not going to name names for anybody or put anybody on the spot for their changing political views, but as a result of this, I have had at least one lifelong Republican and at least one lifelong Democrat ask me, how do I become a libertarian? And I said, well, it's really as simple as changing your voter registration, right, to do that. But then if you want to get involved in the party, you can go down that route. But, both of these people are involved in, like, charitable types of things. And I hate to be a bad LPNC activist, but I said, while we'd love to have you, I really don't want you to like stop doing the work you're doing now,
Right?
just to come help us,
It's
right?
like,
We're growing.
How can we support your work?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that's a good way that, they're trying to make it this binary choice, and it's not a binary choice. We should be doing candidates when we have good candidates, but we should absolutely not just leave the other type of activism to the think tanks and to these other things.
Right.
The party in my opinion, again, I believe that the party itself needs to be involved in those activities as well, and it can't just be one or the other.
Yeah, I think I said earlier that your political views don't amount to anything unless they actually help people. And so when you have that kind of record of standing up for people, helping people, when you have people who are willing to testify, yes, because there's a libertarian in my life is better. This person or this group has improved my life. Sure.
They
They made a difference for me and my family. That's what really matters.
Yeah.
And whether you do it on the grand scale, the macro scale of federal legislation, or whether you do it on the individual scale of just standing up for one person, or standing up for just a few people or one organization that's run afoul of government. That's what makes you got to make a difference in people's lives.
Yeah.
And when people see that, that's what impresses them rather than any ideology you might have.
And I just want, on that note, I want to say that to if anybody outside of North Carolina, I know we don't really have this problem here, but if anybody outside of North Carolina is listening to this, keep that in mind, what Sean just said. When we are fighting with this infighting publicly, people see that. And if they might like our ideas, but if they see that, it's probably causing people on both camps that if they wanted to slid into a faction, it's causing them to walk away, and the end result is it's hurting liberty. And I'm not trying to compromise on principle. I mean, I'm very much, and I think even though we're maybe, some people would probably say we're should be on opposites, I very much agree with you. Like, I mainly care about North Carolina, but I one of the reasons that I'm in the Macy's caucus is I personally am not happy with how National and the LNC responded to what I think have been the greatest infringements on personal liberty in my lifetime as an almost 40-year-old, right? I was born in 82.
Yeah.
And I saw churches literally being sold. You can't go to church.
I know the pandemic really
but we were quiet.
Brought a lot of this stuff to the fore. And, just the evolution of my views alone are kind of instructive to me, because I remember talking to Joe Garcia, our chair, when I first took over the Twitter account. It was less than a year ago. We had this conversation about vaccine mandates, and I said, well, I'm not really terribly worried about it right now. I'm not going to make a big deal out of it right now, but once people start talking seriously about instituting them, yes, I will go mental.
Yeah.
At that point. And then shortly thereafter, that we reached that point. And
that's why I view it as the biggest missed opportunity, because I think there are people who are left and right who are mad about this, and it could have been a great way to bring them into the LP.
I mean, and I feel like I'm really typical in that I am not anti-vax. I got vaccinated. I very strongly think it's a good idea to get vaccinated, but at the same time, as a libertarian, I'm absolutely horrified by the notion that the government can tell you have to inject this substance into your body. You have to make that choice for yourself. I advocate. I have a choice I've made, and I advocate for it vehemently. But mandates haven't worked. Not only are they just totally unjust, and not only did lockdowns like totally wrecked the economy. It didn't work. None of it. The only thing that actually helped stop the spread or slow down the spread of COVID were individuals making their own choices. Individuals deciding I'm going to wear a mask, or I'm going to get vaccinated, or I'm going to social distance.
I think the hand sanitizer that everybody kind of went crazy with was probably a good idea too. Like everybody.
No.
I'm sure.
It has nothing to do with it.
But it helped. I feel like it helped with like cold and flu because
You don't get it from touching things.
Yes.
You get it from breathing things. And
well, maybe it didn't help with COVID, but I feel like it helped with other things. Just the natural, better hygiene.
I mean, now that we're kind of coming out the other side of it, I'm going to stick with social distancing.
Yeah.
I hope the handshake goes away. It wouldn't bother me at all.
I'm a hugger, so that part's tough for me.
Well, I'm about consent. I'm about consent. It's like, you want to touch me, ask for consent.
Sure.
I will probably give it to you.
Right.
I will accept a hug.
Yeah.
But don't just walk up to me and hug me like you're just going to assume that I'm cool with that. No. And so you're absolutely right. It was I love my party and I don't wish to be critical of it, but we're talking about this sort of radical messaging versus wanting to be part of the establishment. I think we really erred when it came to our national party response to vaccine mandates and lockdowns, and there was this fundraising thing where people raised like $35,000, and you gave to that. I'm pretty sure, to make an ad, to make a video, on the topic, to drag the LNC kicking and screaming into doing something about it, and then they came out with the ad, and it's like,
it hasn't aired yet. It's airing tomorrow, so it'll actually be aired.
The one from months ago.
No, I talked to Eric Raudsep.
Yeah.
About this exact thing, the video, the $30,000 video there, and we just talked about it. And
it's like people gave you money for that.
Well, and my point that I made was, we've got a lot of talent in the LP.
We do.
We could have had that, we didn't even retweet Dan Smotz's video, right? Like that, and I think that was a very similar, maybe it was too aggressive for some people, but we could have at least hit retweet.
Well, but you see, part of libertarian culture, to me, is individualism.
Yeah.
Is that we do best when we empower people to do their own messaging.
Yeah.
To use our brand to do their own messaging. And it can be messy. And there's certainly some people out there now who represent libertarian state parties on Twitter who I think are getting into some anti-libertarian messaging, but it's messy. It's like you have to empower people to go out and be the libertarian in their community. I just feel like the greatest, I've been doing this since 94. I've been state chair. I've been executive director. I've served many other roles in party administration, and far and away, and of course, I don't regret it. I'm not going to say anything bad about it. I did a lot of good work there and helped grow the party that way. But far and away, the one thing that I did that was the most effective in growing this party was running for U.S. Senate, where I was the candidate. I was the CEO of my own show.
Right.
I didn't have anybody in the party or out to tell me how to do this. I went, and some people were a little worried when I first ran, because I was willing to, I came across as being a little unhinged, just like, because I saw we weren't going to run anybody, and I just, nobody was stepping up, and I just got really angry and said, okay, well, I'm going to do it, and things turned out, some people were worried that I was going to be too not radical, but confrontational. And, but no, it's like I was able to do so much to help grow the party, and it was totally on me.
Right.
I was not controlled by the party. Nobody in the party was telling me how to do this. And that's my attitude now as sort of an elder, is that I want to encourage people to find their own libertarian voice and express it and go out and be libertarian in public and put out your own message.
Yeah.
Especially now in social media, you have that power to create your own message, to build your own audience, and to develop the Libertarian Party brand. Now, people like to argue about, there are a lot of people who want to argue about what really is pure libertarian messaging. And as far as I'm concerned, as long as everybody acknowledges that I am the one true libertarian,
right,
that all other libertarianism is measured against, I don't have any problem with that. Just as long as we're agreed on that.
Right, and when you agree on that, you also have to agree that I'm the only true libertarian too.
Well, of course, we all are.
Yeah, because
we all are. It's not a competition,
right?
So, and it's a very cut and dried, very simple ideology. Again, and we really only tell you two things not to do: don't hit people, don't take their stuff. Anything else you want to do?
Yeah,
fine.
All right, so we're back after another little break, and I realize we're kind of going marathon. I don't know if you gathered. I really enjoy talking to Sean. We talked a lot. We talked a lot.
Yeah.
We could probably go Joe Rogan, but there's some mofongo that we wanted to get to. So I think we'll definitely have Sean back on. But Sean, I'd be remiss if I didn't at least grant you the same opportunity of all the other candidates. North Carolina libertarians who are listening. I know that you are, are you raising funds? Are you trying to do that?
Not.
Can we support you in some other way? How can we support you?
It's interesting. I feel a little bad because people have come to me and said, you're one of the two libertarian candidates who only has one opponent. How can I support your race? And I explain to them what I'm really about. And it's like, I was not planning to raise or spend any money.
Okay.
And I don't want to take your money unless I can come up with a plan about how I'm going to spend that money that's actually going to accomplish something other than you just feeling good about giving me money.
Right.
So, I'm happy to see, so I encourage people, give your donation to this person or give your person, put your donation somewhere else where it's really, you're going to get a bang for your buck.
Okay.
And that's something I've always really kind of done. It's really kind of interesting, having been the front and center person a few times, is that I've always preferred to be in the background. I've always preferred to support. I always saw myself as the administrative guy,
right,
in the background who takes care of all the paperwork. Like I'm a volunteer treasurer for a number of campaigns. I'll take care of all the paperwork, all the administration junk that you find mind-numbing, so you can just go out and represent and do your thing as a libertarian. So it's always been really important to me to support other people who do the work, to develop new stars, to help more people get out there and become known.
Yeah.
For their libertarian message. And now we just have so many people. It's just, like I said, it just really warms my heart. And I can leave you with this, because I was telling you before we started, so incredibly gratifying last few state conventions.
Okay.
Where people would come up to me and say, I got involved in the party because I saw your videos in 2014. And I'm like, wow, it's like, that's the best. That's why I did this. That's the best compliment, the best honor.
Right. You brought someone to libertarianism. Yeah.
For you to tell me that I did something for you to help you be here today, that's fantastic. But at the last state convention, even better. I ran into a bunch of people, really great, solid young libertarians, who had no idea who I was. And it was like, yeah, that's fantastic, because, it was 8 years ago.
Yeah.
That
means we're growing.
And it is. And that's the whole point. That's the whole reason why I did this, is because back when I started, it was just a few of us, a small handful. And now we are tens of thousands. And continuing to grow and continue to bring more people into the party. And, if I'm remembered, that's nice. But what's really important is that the message of liberty continues to get out there and continues to change public policy.
Yeah.
That's really what matters. And whether my name's attached to it ever or not, well, that's nice.
Yeah.
But,
I don't know if we'll see Ancapistan in my lifetime. Probably not, but I'll be happy if we take a few steps closer to it. And I think we need a lot less infighting and a lot more recruiting of every type of libertarian at this point, because that's really what I think we need the most of.
Yeah, you get a hold of somebody with a libertarian impulse, embrace them
and bring them in,
love them, and nurture them and help them understand what the Libertarian Party is about and how they can be a part of it, and make them feel like them being part of it is meaningful.
Yeah.
Actually makes a difference in their lives and the lives of other people.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, are you ready for some Mofungo?
I am ready.
Well,
for
thank
some Mofungo. Absolutely.
Thank you for all of our listeners. We will see you next
Get
week.
ready.
Keep fighting for liberty right here in NC.